I went from listening to podcasts and saying, hey, this is really cool, to saying, I could do this. How do I create the show that I want to hear? And then overcoming the inertia to actually get behind the mic and go for it.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good afternoon, Nick Loper, previously episode 97 of the 12-Minute Convos podcast. It's been just 3 years, 1 month, 23 days, 1 hour, and 30 minutes since we last recorded our conversation.
As far as starting a side hustle, I like to think of it as an experiment. And if you already have a day job, you're probably a better position than most because you can afford to take a little bit of a risk and not have to worry about paying the bills next month.
That was then. This is now. Nick, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Good to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's going on? The last time we spoke, the podcast was definitely one of the focus, right? What's up? What's going on? Is the side hustle show alive still?
Yeah, alive and well. It just passed 10 million lifetime downloads. We're over 350 episodes now. It's 6.5 years deep. It's been an incredible journey. I mean, as you know, the relationships that you can build with just a microphone started for me, $50 mic in my living room. And it's been a life-changing thing. I just love doing it and love putting the show together every week.
Wow, the power of schooling, the power of class, right? Like, you went into this, it feels as though jumping into it from the perspective of, okay, I'm going to learn. I'm a student of the art or the craft. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and very much still that way. I feel like when I started the show, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no passion for podcasting. But as it's become more and more of a thing, like it's become a part of my identity. The show is like my baby. It's like my creative outlet in a lot of ways. And like I've started calling myself a podcaster, which, it took a long time to like really lean into that identity, but it's been really cool.
The compound effect of continuously doing one thing. You've taken that to another level. Over 300 episodes. Did you stop any time in between or like take a break?
No breaks, no seasons. I mean, I'm not a machine. Like I haven't done thousands like you have, but I'm getting up there.
Yeah, but your podcasts are very long. Like your podcasts aren't like 12 minutes. I think that has to be put in there to give it credit. Like amazing. So are you still side hustling as well? Or have you now moved into full-time entrepreneurship?
Full-time for me, actually full-time over 10 years now.
10 years? Oh, okay. Sorry.
The podcast actually started in the blog as a side project to the original side hustle that had turned into a full-time business. That was a footwear comparison shopping site. So back in the day, before people just went to Amazon to look for products, they would go to Google. And so my site would capture searchers for specific models of shoes. Like, I'm looking for the, New Balance model XYZ or whatever. So my site would pop up usually in the ads and would show people where they could find the best price on those shoes. If somebody bought, it would earn a commission on that sale. And so while I was running that full time, decided to start the blog and the podcast to kind of talk about my experience and kind of share other people's stories of their side hustles. And that's when things started to take off.
Now, are you seeing the comparisons relatable from those that are doing 9 to 5 and considering another thing, their side hustle, as compared to those that are running business like you were doing at that time and considering another thing, the side hustle? Is it relatable or is it more like 80-20 for the 9 to 5 person being the 80%?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely more people kind of still in the corporate grind and looking for a way out or looking for something to spend their free time more effectively, more productively on. So that's probably the biggest segment. And then once you're in motion, then all these opportunities and conversations and ideas start to pop into your head. And so it's very much the case of like side hustles on side hustles, where once you get going, you're like, oh, I should start this other thing. And that definitely happens as well.
That's wonderful. Now there's a 3-year-old running around somewhere in there, right? Are there like more children or is he the one still right now?
Yeah, you're right. We've probably added a new addition to the family since we last
Wow.
chatted. So we've
Congratulations.
got the 3.5-year-old, and he's got a little brother now who is one and a
Wow.
half. And so
Wow.
they keep us busy for sure, keep us on our toes.
Yeah, I would imagine. Now, how are you seeing what you're doing affecting them?
That's a good question. And we're trying, especially with the older one, trying to explain like, oh, we don't work on Fridays. We don't go to school on Friday. Well, how come I don't go to school on Friday? Like, well, because, daddy has his own business and, we have the flexibility to take that time off. Like it's kind of, starting with those baby steps, the benefits of how it works. And it's kind of funny to like, well, what does daddy do for work? Oh, he talks to people. It's just no real idea of what's going on just yet, but excited to see that. I mean, that's the big challenge is like, how do you raise the next generation of entrepreneurs? Like, how do you instill this certain mindset and skill set going forward? That's definitely something on our plate for the next 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, share notes with me, right? Like we're homeschooling the second and we're experiencing that. And this is his first, he did kindergarten and now he's being homeschooled. And it's amazing.
What's that been like, that transition?
So the transition was cool. So I have a 10-year-old as well, just to give the full embodiment of what's going on. But I have a 10-year-old and he's going to school. But his personality is one that really gravitates to the social sphere, right? So he needs that. Like I can see that being a good thing for him. My second son, though, he isn't too much into going to school. It's not that he doesn't like people, like he really loves people, but he's really cool with his space and in his own realm, right? And what we're seeing is he's actually learning a lot faster. In fact, he's almost learning to the level of my first son, right? And interacting with that content.
Yeah.
And then my third son, he is just like 3 months, right? So
Oh my gosh, congrats.
yeah, thank you. So he's like the newbie in the family. So he's going to get the full enchilada of entrepreneurs at home. But yeah, it's been pretty cool. It's intriguing though, because our mindsets, Nick, are still systemized, right? Like we think he should know certain things, just like you said, right? With the 3.5-year-old. But it's really now understanding that this is like a new wave in this generation, right?
Yeah. That's cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm always curious, like how people are, what the different strategies are for entrepreneurial parents and their kids. So that's cool to hear.
Yeah, I think it's important to get together and have conversations because sometimes we can put ourselves under a rock, right? And there are many takeaways that can help transform the experience because the journey is truly the beauty. The journey is the value. So now, navigating the road trip with your father, right? Like at that time, you were fascinated as even that young man with directing others and not from a forceful way, right? It's not like you're saying, go left. It was a way that I find connects to what you're doing now by having these conversations that help people navigate their paths. Would you say that's accurate? And if it is accurate, did you think it would evolve this way?
It's kind of funny. My dad likes to say that the entrepreneurship must skip a generation because he was like a career employee, like 30, 40 years almost at this one company. But his father before him, ran his own business. And so he's like, oh, it must skip a generation. So I'm curious to see what happens with our kids.
Oh. Well, I'm so glad that we have this opportunity. Understanding generations as well, there's a conversation we've been opening up, which is the conversation of the possibility of death today or tomorrow. Is that something you interact with, like that mindset of, hey, I could die today or tomorrow, and how do I move forward with today, the present, in spite of that?
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole Memento Mori kind of thing. It's this humility plus urgency or plus inspiration where it's like, okay, everybody kind of has this same fate and you don't know when that's going to happen, but at the same time, not yet. So like go out and get it done, go do what you want to do. And a friend of ours he was like not even 40 and he's on his second round of chemo. He's got 2 young kids and that really hit me where it's like, you never know what's coming down the road. So it's like, try and make the most of the time that you have and trying to find a balance too. Cause it's like, I do really enjoy my work, but it's like, I want to be present and engaged and hopefully being a good dad with the kids, when it's time to shut down that work. And so that's one reason that, we've drawn a line in the sand and said, hey, we pretty much don't work Fridays and try and, find that balance between them going to preschool, going to daycare and having the family time together. Gosh, it's scary to think about, but yeah, you never know when it's going to end.
Now, your wife, how has everything you've been doing affected her?
She's been doing awesome. So she's still working full time as an engineer, kind of by choice rather than necessity, which is a good place to be in.
Yes.
And her side hustle is in the wedding photography space and family photography space. And that's been really cool to see grow because she started that right around the same time as Side Hustle Nation started. And so she's kind of grown that right alongside. And it's been really empowering for her to say, oh, I have this worth, I have this earning power and earning potential outside of just my regular paycheck. And so it's been really fun.
That's wonderful. Well, Nick, my friend, it's such of a pleasure. It's such of an opportunity. I don't take it lightly. It's an opportunity where I have something where I'm having a conversation with someone, but more than anything else, I'm like immortalizing the voice of the person I'm speaking with. And I always jokingly say, well, for as long as I pay hosting, right? But it's really remarkable to have an opportunity like this to jump in and have a conversation with you and hear that you've continued on your path, that you've not given up. Looking back over the last 3 years and almost 3 years, 1 month, and everything that I said there, right? Like, well done, because you're making an impact in the world. You're making an impact on humanity. So again, well done. In closing, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Well, as are you. And so that's the big thing, is like kind of this shift from consumer to creator. And of course, we still need people to consume our stuff, but it's been a really important shift for me. I went from listening to podcasts and saying, hey, this is really cool, to saying, well, I could do this. How do I create the show that I want to hear? And then overcoming the inertia to actually, get behind the mic, schedule the calls, and go for it.
Well done. Amazing audience. Again, you're hearing it live from Nick Loper. Check out the Side Hustle Show. Amazing stuff going on there. Nick Loper, a pleasure I treasure. Thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.